Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Spiritual Scientist. It's Victor. Hey, want to see how it is if I go out on my deck and do a little video here with you guys? And thought we'd talk about a couple things, if hopefully, so it won't cut out and be choppy. A little more professional, hopefully. So, I don't know if you could. There we go. Hi. So, no one's expecting me to do this. I just kind of turned on my computer and did it. So as a black hole is now on our doorstep, 1,000 light years away, which is very close. It's smaller than the one in the center of the galaxy, which is Sagittarius with a star. This black hole is, I think it's about, as I remember reading, 3 solar masses larger than the sun. The way the scientists were able to determine that it was at the it's close by is because of the light that was bending, and they decided to try out a couple of because there's some closer Sirius, as I remember, A and B was there, and they decided to check it out. One of the scientists died in a car crash um, before all this kind of got out, but that was his idea, which sounds like beginning of one of the movies that you saw. What was that last movie where the scientist dies in a car crash, and then it was a deep impact, and then like a year later, like, oh, if only he didn't die, he had the disc with him. But anyway, um, I don't think it's anything really to worry about. I was listening to Nassim Harriman, and just to tell you a little bit about black holes, and someone on my page recently, oh, the bugs are coming out. Someone on my page was like flipping out about black holes. They're like, there's no such thing as a black hole. I'm like, you can't prove it. I'm like, okay, prove it. Prove there's something not. Okay, just bugs are coming out. Gee, Albert Einstein thought there was, so I'll go with Albert Einstein over you, you know? Anyway, um, so the the way I was listening, Nassim Harriman, and the way the black hole would spin is that it spins, and the only way, supposedly he's saying, they could go in to a black hole is on its axis. So you're actually not going to go into a black hole just like over the event horizon. You would spin around and then you would go into its axis, which seems kind of strange to me. But I was thinking about it, and the thing about a black hole is that I notice this a lot with vibrational frequencies as well. Vibrational frequencies, you have to step up or step down to match vibrational frequencies. That's why when I do like a distance healing, and because I do distance healing for those that don't know, and I'm like, now I just know because I've done it so many times. I'm like, it's not gonna affect you for 5 to 10 minutes, 5 to 8 usually. So that higher energy kind of, is there right away, but it has to step down to get into the other person's energy system, and we all are different, time. So time is time and space are interrelated. So we all have our separate kind of time sense. And being that let's just admit it, I'm in a higher vibrational state. So when I do a healing, I know it's going to take a longer time for the other person to get it, especially distantly, because it has to kind of step down to reach. Is how it is. So it's the same kind of idea with a black hole. So with a black hole, you don't just get sucked in. It's like it has to kind of spin you up first, and then match then your vibrational frequency will match it, and then you'll be sucked in. So it's going to take a while, but as I predicted on my channel, that I said I hope, unfortunately, I hope that we're not closer. There's not a black hole closer, and I said that I don't want us to have one closer. I said no, but that's just the way it is. So we have one 1,000 light years now. We had one at it was, as I recall, as I was saying before, 28,000 light years. It was further than that. That was 27, 26, 25 now, thousand light years. And I saw something that was 24, which flipped me out. Not to scare you, but the giant black hole. So I said that some of the things can be the time can be correlated with the Mandela effect. What I was talking about is if there's a black hole and it's interfering with time. So if time is, so that stress, we have time and steady. It comes in waves. So you have a time wave. So there's actually a time wave that's coming off of the black hole, and we can only go, forward. We're not going reverse in a black hole. But as I mentioned on my channel, if you watch this channel before, we have they did a study, and they said that in the outer atmosphere, when we have planes going at a high altitude, that actually a lot of the turbulence is actually a time wave. So I thought that was pretty interesting. If anybody wants to comment, I'll talk to you specifically about the comment. But I thought I'd talk about a little bit about the black hole. The interesting thing is, one of my theories is that as we go towards, the universe goes towards a black hole, our universe, everything around us, the outside universe, would seem to expand. So we're in a universe, and they can't make sense of how matter's expanding at such a fast rate. It doesn't make sense. So they're thinking maybe there's a snap back. As I mentioned, I think I mentioned this before on my channel. Maybe I didn't. So if we're actually going towards a black hole, albeit slow, hopefully, we would actually shrink. So being that we're shrinking, from our perspective, it would seem like the universe would be expanding, because we're getting distance from all the rest of the universe. But that's only because, from our perspective, that we're actually shrinking. So one of the Mandela effects that a lot of people talked about, I guess it was about a year and a half ago, is how people were shrinking, and 5'11" and a half, as I recall. And now when my height, and I was I was measured by very good measurers. So when they would measure me my whole life, after I got to a certain age, I know what, it's on your driver's license, what your height is. And now I'm 5'10", just barely 5'10". So I lost about 1.5 inches. A lot of people do report that as well. Anyway, if you're on this and you're checking me out, like, subscribe, share, as I always say. Hopefully it's not too dim. I thought it'd be neat to do one in the light, but it just got a little darker out there. Anyway, so I thought I'd go online and talk about whatever anybody else wanted to talk about. But I thought I'd start off by talking about these, black hole. So, not really something to worry about. And they're saying that, like a hummingbird, if you went to a hotel and you saw a hummingbird outside your window, one scientist said that maybe that hummingbird, maybe that would mean that in the city where you're at, there's a lot of hummingbirds. So if we detect a black hole 1,000 light years away, maybe there's a lot of black holes around. There's been some people that suggested that in every atom of your body, you actually could have a miniature black hole, which doesn't really make sense, but quantumly it can. It sounds like it's right, but when they at CERN, when they go into their colliders and they try to do when they slam particles together, supposedly they get a miniature mini black hole, and it just dissipates really quickly, in a nanosecond, and that's what they're looking about. So hopefully you're enjoying this so far. I was going to see if anybody had any questions, anything you'd like to talk about. I think I have. I did this, as I mentioned, impromptu. So I'm wearing. You might notice me wearing these beads. I'm going to do a meditation pretty soon. I've been doing them a lot live for people that they said they enjoy it. I'm doing meditations with a group through an ashram of unfoldment, and the starting to do classes. And the person that's teaching me was with the uh, Raj Yogi, which is a very well known yogi, passed away, but so he's way up there, as it were, in the spiritual community, and well known yogi, and he his is one of his devoted followers. He taught everything he knows to that person. That person's personally showing me the ropes, which is pretty cool. I mean, I already know everything, but it's nice to get a different perspective. And I would say it's a very, very concerning meditation and spirituality. It's a very um, nuts and bolts. We're getting down to laying it out there and everything, especially meditation. So I'm not trying to. I wear these a lot sometimes in the videos. I see other guys wearing beads, and I'm like, I'm not a faker. I'm wearing it it's easier for me to put around my neck right now than lose it and not find it. So anyway, uh, I'm doing that right now. So I'm doing I expect to do a meditation maybe on my Facebook page pretty soon, and people are saying it's helping them, which is cool. Is it getting darker in the background? I hope not. Anyway, let's talk about that. I saw these spiritual teachers, and it's always like a it's a kick in the where when you hear about these people and they get a lot of followers, and then they kind of lead them astray, and then it always seems to be the case. It's just really a downer. All these guys that and ladies that just are out for money and things like that, and aggrandizing themselves, and just always they're not doing it correctly. I'm trying to do it the right way. Anyway, anybody? Well, there's how you doing? That one person watching. Maybe it was a like and nobody's watching, but that's okay. I think usually these videos, I mean, I don't care if I get a lot of viewers, unlike other channels. I mentioned I wanted to get to 1,000, but that was the only reason, is so I can go on my iPhone and do these live. I really have no agenda, like no ego attached to it, because like they say, Jesus had 12 disciples that were following him around. Not saying you're watching this, you're a disciple, but he had 12 people listening to him all the time. If I have 30 people that watch my videos constantly, then that's almost triple. What? So anyway, a lot going on. I did actually predict that the black hole. I said that. Just I don't want to be right, like I said, about these things. What else do you guys want to talk about? Anybody want to log in? The birds are really flying around me, huh? They're cool. I love birds. Anybody want to talk about anything before I sign off? Or not? I could just stay here and do an hour video, but I don't think I will. Um, what else could we talk about? What do you want to talk about? Anybody want to jump on board? I guess it would be cool if I had a few thousand people on my channel. That way, when I do these live impromptu ones, at least a couple people would populate, and then we can have a conversation. Doesn't matter to me. Hopefully, you're doing well with the stay at home. I think it's important to meditate and stay spiritual in these times, as always. And a lot of people come to me about anxiety. That's a good topic to talk about. So I wrote an article on my blog about anxiety. I shared it with a couple of people, and they said it helped them. Hopefully. Um, so, as I mentioned before, anxiety is just like that. It's you're worried, so you're worried about things, and what it is like we have these energetic states. So you enter into you're projecting an energetic state, and you don't want to step into that area. You don't want to step into that vibration, but you feel that vibrational frequency. So when you feel that vibrational frequency and you just don't want it to happen, then you have an anxiety. As I mentioned, one of my sayings is that if you can control something, then you shouldn't worry about it, because then you can control it. Don't, if you can't control something, there's no reason to worry about it. So if we can't control something, you don't worry about it. But isn't to say you fall asleep and not do anything about it. You can comment and do your thing. But what I'm saying is that when we have these anxieties, a lot of times what I say is, as an energetic healer, I said, where do you feel the anxiety in your body? And you feel it like sometimes in your gut, or maybe you're in your chest. Usually that's where you feel it, and you're feeling it in your gut and your chest, and you don't feel. So I say, okay, go into that space where you feel it in your body. Push your awareness into it, and then you assimilate those energies. So it's all about assimilating energies and pushing into that vibrational frequency, and then that vibrational frequency dissipates. A lot of times I'll do a distance healing with somebody, and they'll say, oh, I have anxiety. If I push out, like, let's say I push out energy. I'm on the phone, I'm doing a video. If I'm doing a distance healing, and I push a healing towards them, that can help alleviate stress, because then they'll feel the different energies which assist them with their willpower. So when your willpower is being sapped, you feel like that is a drain as well. So a lot of this is draining, but when you get more healing energy coming towards you, then you'll get that alleviate, because uh, you're into a mind state that's run away. You don't feel like you control it. That energetic state is a sense of no mind. So when that sense of no mind, that Om frequency of silence, when that comes towards you, you gain more ability to separate your thoughts. Like in meditation, it's all interrelated. And that's um, when, like, for instance, if I do energetic healing with somebody, and they have um, I'll say to them, when I get reported a lot as well, is that they have um, they'll see colors, more vividly. That's because you're at a higher state. So when you're higher state of awareness, you're actually like in the Matrix. When Neo is laying on the table and they have all the needles in it, if you ever watch that movie, And he says, my eyes hurt. He said, well, you never used your eyes before. It's the same way with doing a healing, is because you get into this, people don't look through their eyes. They're only seeing a little bit because their brain's capturing information from, from their awareness. They're always looking past or the future. But when people are, uh, not present, they're not processing what's really in front of them. So when you're more present in your awareness is focused on it, and they don't hear me, you shake their shoulder, hey, they go, oh, I wasn't paying attention. So you're not hearing area, you see. So when we get towards, more wholeness, and you meditate more, and then you're more at peace, then you're able to assimilate more, and you're able to be more in the moment. And when you're more in the moment, that's when life. So there's a lot of people like walking around, like I've mentioned before. I was talking to somebody, I was in the city and doing a negotiation with somebody. Gentleman makes, I don't know, 400,000 a year when I was, doing things with him. And then, I'm talking to him all the time, and a lot of times his eyes would, just be closed, and he wasn't tired. It just, he blinks a lot, but then he blinks, and his eyes would be closed a lot. He's literally, asleep. A lot of people, walking around in the world that are literally asleep during the day. So he's had the good life. He hasn't had, something that rocked his world, that shook him, that made him spiritually awake. So the more spiritually awake have bad things happen to them a lot of times, or something that shakes them awake. So you have a spiritual, quote unquote, awakening. So you need that trigger to wake up. And sure, he's making a lot of money. He's happy. He's doing all these, buying all these things and whatever. But he's literally, sleeping through his life. So I think I said this before. Um, oh, hi, stopping, buffering a bit. Oh, sorry about that. Um, when in the moment, quiet in nature, universal speaks. Yeah. So he's literally, asleep. So there's people in the world, and I've met tons of them, and they're literally asleep. I remember walking. I've walked through, a large room, and there's 400, mostly guys. We're having a meeting, so there are 400. It was really a workplace. So I walked in. I remember it was like my first day, and there was just a big room with a lot of guys there on their, phones and computers, and I just walked through, and I could see who's who's more awake and who's asleep. And it was most of them. But there was, like, out of 400, I would say, to me, about 5, 6, I want to say, were, I like, you like catch their eye, like, oh, okay, you're awake, you're awake, you're awake, you're awake. And the rest, and I knew. And then, like, I started there, and sure enough, those are the people that were, awake, and the rest were asleep. And when I say asleep, like, they're not spiritually awake. You could just sense them. Like, if I go in a room, you'll just sense the people that are more spiritually awake and not, spiritually awake. Um, and when you're, more centered, you'll feel that. So a lot of times, you'll have a guru. He'll say, God is within you. And then, it's like, I made up a meme. It's funny, with John Travolta going like this, like, where is he? So you have to find, in meditation, you find the quiet. spot. So, you know, we are always getting information, right? You're always getting information from the universe, everything. But and you have these thoughts, and a lot of people think they are their thoughts. So when you meditate enough and you end up, there's different types of meditation, different types of yogas to do to find the quietness and stillness. So when you find that quietness and stillness, like in nature, uh, when you find that quietness and stillness, then you have that separation from your thoughts, and you can actually see your thoughts. And then you say, "Oh, where's that coming from?" Uh, Suzanne says, "What was the 40p guys there for?" I'm not sure what you mean, 40p guys. Is there something in my title that says 40p guys? 40p guys? 400 star 4. I'm not sure what you're talking about. 400. I don't know what. Um, Hopefully it's not buffering now. No buffering. One of the ways that you do is meditation. The other way is breathing. So I talk about the Hamsa breathing. You could Google it. It's on my website. Uh, One way is to. Those are really the best ways. One of the only ways to reach full enlightenment is doing uh, breathing meditation. There's really no other way to get towards full enlightenment and full raising your kundalini all the way, unless you do breathing. And I came up with Hamsa breathing, and that's the one I recommend. I recommend doing chanting as well. It's another way to focus the mind, so then you could do your breathing better. But both are important. The other thing that if I mention is that if you get angry, focus on your breathing, and you won't be angry. Take a breath. So, Suzanne, are you still here? I'm just curious. What star 400? What was the 400p guys there for? Oh, the 400. I had a business with a job. I'm not doing it now, but I do negotiate for business. Well, I was negotiating with the highest net worth individuals on the planet. I negotiate contracts for a company. I'm not always just, wearing a t-shirt and beads. And I am one of the best negotiators on the planet. If I do say so myself. Companies hire me to come figure out contracts and such. I'm not working right now though, so I wanted to, like, I was making, well over, $250,000 a year. I'm not just some schmuck, but I want to get back into teaching spirituality. So that's why I'm trying to concentrate my time now doing as much as possible. Um, and I don't expect to make any money with it, but trying to do something. But I'm just doing what I'm being led by spirit. The meeting that you walked in with the 400 mostly men. You were speaking of a few minutes ago about only 4 or 5 seem awake, the rest were asleep. Yes, I wasn't sure if you're talking about the 400 net worth individual or 400 people. So I used 400 twice. You have to type the whole word out. I don't know what 400p you meant, but you're talking about the 400 men. Yeah, I was saying that I could, if you walk into a room, um, you could tell. Now, you'll just feel their aura and you'll feel the energy. You'll know, like I know. So, for instance, I was a member of a Native American Indian tribe. They accepted me even though I have white skin. When I got to be, I went up and met with them a few times. They saw my pure intentions, ended up being uh, going and living with the tribe for over 3 years up in the mountains of Pennsylvania, and they once came up the big shaman, that was in charge of all the tribes. Uh, and like, I mean, he came. I remember, like when he pulls up in his car. I mean, he was like, a quarter of a mile away. You're like, and I'm facing the wrong way. I'm turning around like, what? Like you just know. I was like, what? The guys, there's something's coming. That was him. And you could. I always where he is. I'll just know. I'll be like, oh, he's like, and he's letting me know. It's not like, yeah. Um, and I mean, people know. So it's like when you get that feeling like somebody's staring at you. So I'd be like, be in a you'd be in a bar with your friends. When I was younger, and say, look at that girl over there. I'm gonna get her turn around and look at me. And he goes, how are you gonna do that? I'm like, just you just push your intention and you look real hard, and then what's that? Turns around. It's like, how are you doing that? It's just always been able to, just it's just that was before you just know. You're like, how do you do that? How do you make people turn around like that? How do you always been able to, you know, um, that was like 30 years ago. Yeah, aura and feeling. So there's actually, there's your aura. There's different levels to your aura, and your eyes can have energy to it, which connects to your perception, right? Not to get too deep on it, you'd have to really attend one of my classes, probably in person, for me to get into this detail. But when you focus, your awareness on your eyes, you can be soft or hard gaze. And when you have a hard gaze, people turn, and they'll look at you because they feel it. You'll feel it because it's pushing on their aura, and that stamp, the time sense. So they're feeling their time, a different time sense, as I mentioned before at the beginning. Black holes, time. I was talking about time. So they feel a different time sense. It has to do with time. So they're feeling a time sense. And when they feel that time sense, that's when they're like, there's a different time sense. It has to do with time sense, and like the slit, the double slit experiment. It's focusing that time sense is changing things. You can sense people's aura. Yeah. Well, if you not to yeah, back in the day at the bar days, yeah, those, oof, I spent a lot of money then. Uh, I can sense people's aura. So if you, even on the video, so if you go back and you look at, I always have been doing my videos with a white background. One of the things that I'm trying to be open with people. So if you look back on a lot of my videos, you'll see, on some of them you'll see, aura around my head, and then you'll see different colors. My close friends, mention it when they see certain color aura. I'm like, yeah, I know. So that's why I'm projecting out certain color and color frequencies. It's not really color; it's a vibration. So some of the older videos did that, and they would mention that. Yeah, I see a aura around your head. I'm like, yeah. So I've been in. I was with a company, and I was really, really vibrating pretty high, and I don't want to vibrate high at work, for with a bunch of people. It was for a charity, and around me you could see, this aura glowing in the like glowing in the photo. I was like, oh shoot, I'm caught. I didn't, but they ended up using a different photo. So I was like, oh good, maybe there's providence. I didn't want them to see, you know, put that all in the news. Hey, here's a photo of this, with this group. It was not famous, but it went online, and they didn't use that photo, which they took a bunch of photos, but I would have bugged out if they used that photo and like where oh they would have said oh it's a reflection or whatever, you know. uh, I'm not sure what uh, yes, I feel that MSM, oh the mainstream media uses a CGI hologram tech with quite a bit of characters. The eyes don't match the face expressions too. I am laugh my ass off, I guess. I'm not good with those things. So yeah, so that's yeah, I've seen that with the when the reptilians, and then I saw a couple of those videos online where they're newscasters and then their face like morph and freaking crazy. Isn't that crazy? And now they scrubbed David Icke off the web, so that's wacky. Um, anyway, but yeah, when they scrub his eye, all that. What I noticed is people with low energy want to bring you down to their frequency level so you don't have to give in and keep being you. Well, that's certainly the case, and the I met, like I was saying, the high net worth individuals, and when you meet sometimes those really wealthy people, you'll just like a feeling of dread, comes over you, and you're like, it's such a negative feeling, and like, oh my gosh, you're like, oh my gosh, it's like whatever you say is wrong, like you're screwing up, and it's just so like so negative and so dreadful. Oh, in my opinion. Um, so I'm just like, I thought it was an L, not an I. So the I was like, whoa, and then you're like, okay, you're coming from that like reptilian. I mentioned right that reptilian negative thing. That's how you got your money. That's how you're doing this, and that's how you are. Like it really takes over your whole energetic system, and that's where a lot of people's wealth does come from. Is from um, what it is they'll get like they'll the as long as you're channeling that heavy negative vibrational frequency, those archons, then you know then they'll help you by steering energy towards you, which is attached to a lot of times to wealth and money and fame and everything else. So that's why you see a lot of these, people, and you're like, gosh, she's so wealthy. He's got this, he got that, or she, but then they basically, that's the trade off you get, you know. Rare is someone trying to help people, and they're because it's a different energy. I had bosses at jobs like in the past. They got the job because related or got, yeah. I've been in big meetings where the big boss comes in, and you say something and then like he get I've seen it right there in a meeting where he went "Arr," and just for a second, and he looked like a demonic being like took over his face. I mean, it was just so scary. He was just like, whoa, okay, I gotta leave now. So, and you'll see that in corporations, the people who usually rise to the top to get to the boss level have made that kind of a pact, and it's 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 unconscious that you'll know, and that they get like angry all the time, and they lead with negative thoughts, yes, and they use them as a weapon. So right. So if you know you have if you're out there in the world, you could turn it on and turn it off if you get to that, and you could be like, and all of a sudden it looks like I'm angry. You feel anger, coming off. If you feel that anger, then they're like, oh, you're at my frequency. Okay, he's okay. As a way to hide it as a light worker, and project that anger frequency, and then they'll be, oh, he's okay, and then leave the room and be like, ah, I'm not angry. you, you just have to, you know, it's just horrible. That's the way the corporate world is a lot. Unfortunately, not everywhere, but you know, uh, and then when things like this whole C thing happens, and they want you to keep working when people are dying or something, and you're like, they really don't give a f about you or anything concerning your well-being or your family or anything, and they keep cutting your pay, and they'll cut benefits, and it's happening everywhere. Everybody I know in all types of jobs, they'll keep being cut. It's because of that vibrational frequency in the workforce that permeates up to the top is from the archon energy frequency, and it makes that mindset is making everybody poor, and it makes the one less than 1% that are grasping it are getting so wealthy with it, and the rest everybody's starving. And it's really the archon beings, which are from a pyramidal like system. And is this 42 minutes already? Wow, feels like 10 seconds, right? So I remember I was driving once, and I asked the question of source. I said, where is like the reptilians from? Where is all this from? It doesn't make sense to me. Can you kind of explain it? And I got this huge download. And I was driving, and I was like, okay. And I got a whole story, like a science fiction like book, like came in my head like that. And the way I understood it was that the reptilians were a created race that were created by these beings before them. But the beings before them were like the Anunnaki, which were a bird-like race. And then the bird-like race, the Anunnaki, that's why you see them always with like a little suitcase, so they have the genetic things going on. They were like from a planet like where it was like the Earth, right? So let's say that they're from the Earth. And if you look at Australia, that giant eagles back then, but if they're on a parallel Earth, then eagles and birds were the dominant life form. And what if they just continued on one parallel Earth where you have birds that end up being intelligent? And birds, as we know, some birds can talk and things like that. If you have a giant bird, it gets smarter and smarter. So they had these giant birds, as and then these giant birds. If you look at how birds react, and always it's the highest perch. It's always the highest perch is the largest bird's going to take the highest perch. So it's a hierarchical structure is how their society was built. And so they ended up changing, learning tools and everything, and getting into genetics. And what they wanted to do is I got this all pretty quickly, an instant, was that they wanted to get make a being like a warrior race for them, but they can control them. So with nanotech, they took reptilian race, and they created a reptilian race, which was a common race within the structural parallel dimensions, and they could affect changes through parallel dimensions genetically. So when they found, like, let's say dinosaurs, and they selected one, and then because reptilian, they could grow back limbs and get stronger and things like that. But what they'll do is using AI tech, they would put the AI nano in the reptilians so they really don't have a choice. And then they'll have them do whatever. And then they'll make the grays and everything else. So as I understood in that moment, it was the Anunnaki were like a race of like birds, like eagles, end up making reptilians and grays and everything else, and then the AI computers that oversee everything. And I think the Anunnaki might have ascended. They might have went to another state of matter because they got to where they were going. Uh, so they changed their vibrational frequency and ended up getting up, which is hard to believe because they're kind of like negative. But anyway, so they're kind of out of the picture, but as I understand it, or maybe they step back somehow. But the reptilians ended up being the ones who are, you know, still conquering and still doing that and everything else, but ultimately controlled by uh, uh, AI. So an evil like AI. Anyway, that was what I got in a moment. It's an interesting story, but I just thought I'd mention it. That was all like pretty quickly, and it kind of it all like kind of made sense when I got that idea, and it all made sense with all the other things I read about the Anunnaki and the reptilians and Greys and everything else. So I think that's, who knows? Maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm making it all up, and it sounds crazy, but interesting. Does anybody want me to talk about anything else before I go? Um, but anyway, it's an interesting story. I just keep visualizing these giant bird-like creatures that would like on in a mountain, and they would just like one's higher up than the other, and they fight, and then they're always going higher up the same, and that's why in their when they want the same thing in society in that they interface with, they always want the same thing, and they come from the negative aspect. YouTuber about legend that had the Gog and Magog war was beings that would grow back limbs and cut off by swords. Supernatural may have been a Japanese Gog Magog type legend story. Yeah, so reptilians are the ones that can grow back limbs pretty easily, but um, people now can um, grow back their liver. So we're starting to be able to grow back limbs. You'll see, I think, in another couple of years, if not now, that people are going to start being able to grow back limbs. That tech's coming out pretty rapidly. Um, it's with the 3D printing. Um, I attended a couple of lectures. Gosh, was it already 5 years ago? They were talking about 3D printing limbs and everything. And there's this one guy. It was a couple of years ago talking about with a laser scalpel, like the sharpest scalpel is cutting off someone's head from their body and then reconnecting it to another body. And he's came up. I don't know what happened with that story. I was following it for a while and it kind of fell off. But he went to another. It's a doctor. He went to another country to try to do it. I believe he's Italian, but He's going around the world trying to get people to sign up for it. So he finds people are going to die by being paralyzed, and then he'll find a donor body with someone that's brain dead, and then he has to kind of match it up. But what he's been doing is practicing slicing off heads and putting them in other bodies. And once he does that, then he'll wire it up. The hard part, he says, is wiring up, the neurons, because they don't, with the spinal cord. Supposedly had a new kind of glue that kind of puts it there, and he has to freeze people's heads very, very cold. And once he does that, then he'll be able. That'll be something if he was able to do that, then the 1%, the percent of the 1% will just be like, hey, I'll take that young body and I'll put my head on that young body, and they keep going. Omniverse. I know I dreamed of a planet with twice the size of Jupiter in our solar system. Not sure it's connected with the Anunnaki by any means, but I believe it should exist in another dimension. I don't know. I thought about it, and Marduk was the planet that was destroyed, as I thought, by reptilians, and that's what made up the asteroid belt. Uh, I felt the words Enki coming from the sun around last year while meditating. It was strong, like the sun was talking, but not in words. So the sun was talking, um, not in words. I don't know. The sun was talking. Maybe it wasn't the sun. Maybe you're just having a still moment, but I don't know. If you're having a still moment and then all of a sudden you get information, then you have to determine where the information's coming from, and then you'll get a better understanding of test spirits and say, hey, ask them, is Jesus real? You have to ask spirits that when you do get that, and if they say yeah, then usually it's a good spirit. So if it's not getting that, then it's a bad spirit. Did the screen just get weird for a second? I don't know. Maybe it's a light. Maybe you've seen your spirit guide. Hmm. Yeah, I feel like there's a pulse coming through on the screen. Maybe it's just the light now. Getting more twilightish. So you guys want? I talked about a lot of crazy stuff, huh? Yeah, good. Test spirits. You should always test spirits. I crazy stuff. Talked about a lot of crazy stuff. Here I am, normal guy, right? So who is the best channel on the web? Me, yeah. Okay. Orbs. Don't get me started. So orbs could be like information that you could create. If you're like, if you're spiritual enough, you could create an orb. By putting you concentrate and you put the orb together, and then you could program it, and then you send it out, and then it goes does its little thing, and then it pops, and then somebody else gets the information. So you could do that yourself if you're spiritual enough, um, with an orb. So there's different orbs. What I see in videos all the time, I haven't seen in a while, is dead spirits as orbs, and that always is weird. And you'll see people with, they have a video and there's orbs like all over, and you're like, oh. There's other ones. There's one in there's a meditation center in Bali. There's supposedly really pretty. They meditate there all the time, and when you go there, all you just see is orbs all over the place. But that's because they're just sending out high vibrations with orbs all over the place. Uh, I can too, Victor. Haha. There is a lot out there, not just David Icke. So don't know why they pulled David Icke off. Well, he was making. He's a high profile now, a guy. And uh, dark. When I close my eyes, I see dark blue energy, and I project it into certain images according to my will. Well, if you close your eyes long enough, that's just the. Usually, that's the light that's coming through your eyelids, and it might seem as blue energy. Maybe that's what you're seeing. And you're imagining that you're projecting it according to your will to be devil's advocate, or maybe you're on that wavelength when you are doing I don't really, when you're opening your third eye, you're not going to have uh, that real. It's not going to be like colors, you know. That's why when people say, "Oh, I see aura, I see this color and that color," I just usually know they're full of crap, um, because they don't. They, I mean, 99% people, unfortunately, either they imagine things or they're full of crap. Usually, are imagining things, or they're just a novice and they're just visualizing things. Um, it's just most people aren't real, and then it confuses. Like, you'll see a book and it says how to see an aura, and then it's all garbage, and most people don't know. That's why I want to be out there and set the story straight and do maybe a retreat if you guys want to do that, or um, check these out. And hey, I try to be as open book as much as possible. What I've gosh, it was like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I got to a point where I don't say certain things for a reason, because I don't want to give. It's like you don't want to give somebody you don't want to read the end of the book to somebody without them getting a chance to read it themselves. You know what I mean? And then you don't want to give you an end of the book, and then people just get to the end, but they don't understand any information there, and it can be detrimental. Is what I'm saying. So that's why there's a lot of veils in between levels of our reality. Is for protection. Most of it is for protection. So the reason I don't say certain things and don't talk about certain things is for is is for your protection. A friend of mine got married about 2 years ago. She had beautiful pictures of her wedding. There were a lot of orbs. It was near the table. She put pics of deceased loved ones. Well, there you go. She put near a table. She put pics of a deceased loved one. So, and they were attending. They were like, hey, they were waving. I've seen orbs and more throughout my life. Yeah. I used to, when I was really young, it used to freak me out because I'd sit and, I didn't know. I raised from Catholic background, although I meditated and I started doing all this energy work on my own. I didn't have anybody showing me anything. Um, and then it used to freak me out a lot. Um, I'm the type of person who believes in things only after seeing it. I do value my beliefs more than some other beliefs which are made up by someone I know. So that's what's about, and you're allowed to question. You're allowed to see things. You're allowed to know things. You're allowed to ask questions. It's important to, you know, I think, question things. But then, in the Bible, all the time I'd read, like, it says, don't question this or don't question that. And I'm like, that doesn't sit well with me, but, I understand. There's also, there should be a level of respect between you and the creator. So you should have that level of respect where you're going, like a lot of times I'll talk about the Mandela effect and things like that, but I thought about it actually today. I have to bring more of a level of respect towards the creator and what's going on. So, it's not as responsible. You know, I could, I try not to go away from those sensationalized videos where if I show you a picture of an animal that is before and after, like it's unsettling and people don't understand it, and then they're either flipped out or think I'm crazy, and it's not helping. So there's a responsibility that I have as a spiritual teacher, um, and that word spiritual teacher like sets off alarm bells even with me, and I go, "Wow, that's guys or ladies full of it. Whatever they're saying is wrong." but I got to a level now in my life where I'm more comfortable saying it, because there's just certain words that you have to say to relate certain concepts. And what I was saying is that we have to be, really, respectful and understand that, a lot of this seems jarring, but there's things about it. Like the bigger picture, we're seeing a certain wavelength, like of light, and within that, like certain awareness of reality. There's more about it. If you ask more, 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 we keep asking, but there's some things that it's good to just be in your reality too. You know what I mean? So, like you're here for a reason. It's good to be alive and help other people and do good things, and concentrate on that as much as not trying to, break apart reality and understand, it's just a lot of people are coming from a different point of view, especially with these kind of things, and they're not being positive. So I'm trying to always take a step back and come from a positive point of view and say these things as a helpful. So I'm trying to, guide people, from my information I'm getting about everything, and guide people in the correct way is what I'm saying. So I, raised my hand and I said, yeah, I'll help people about this, to navigate this tricky information. So I didn't see a lot of spiritual teachers or healers that even know about it, and a rare few venture towards it because it's going to reflect badly on them, and people are going to think they're crazy and everything else. One thing, I have nothing to lose, right? Well, maybe I do, but I just want to help. I've seen orbs. I'm the type of person who believes in things. Yeah, even if you're not respectful, you should at least be grateful to be alive. Yes, gratefulness is awesome. So the more grateful you are, all the time, it's pretty cool. That's a great feeling, to be grateful. Um, I talked about that a couple videos ago. So yeah, staying grateful and respectful. So it's more, being positive, trust, and like I was talking before about anxiety. So when you don't, when we feel separate from, that universe, is when that anxiety occurs, because we're being separate. But when you assimilate that and you realize that you're part of the universe and everything's happening for a reason, then, then how could you have anxiety? Um, hey, that's cool. Don't be sorry about your English. I'm sure you speak it. I mean, whatever language you're coming from, you're way better in that than I am, I'm sure. Anyway, it's been fun chatting, right? Everybody having a good time. There's only a couple people here. It'd be neat if we had like 50, wouldn't it? You guys are cool, but I'm just saying, it'd be big, big chat. Usually in these chats, you get a couple people coming from that negative vibration, and they'll just like bomb it, and they'll like screw it all up. Or I'll see in the comments, just negative stuff, which, whatever. Hey, comment anything. I like the comments, and people should just keep commenting, and so I'll get, I can answer them back. But the way I do to learn things too is by people asking me questions. So, because then I'll go automatically, I go to source. I go, what? What's the answer? And I'll go, oh, and I get information. So I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. But like, I've done that so much. So it's funny because when you get connected with source more, and then, so I do a lot of like, spiritual mentoring, and I go, ask me anything. And then ask me something. And then I'll figure out the answer as I'm answering it. I'm learning. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. So it's always good to participate, I think, in these kind of chats, and and I'll say things, and and sometimes I'll know it, or I'll know it unconsciously, but it makes and there's different conscious levels, or you get it from source, so you don't realize. So it's always neat when that happens. That's why I like asking people. Like, I just was going to go on my Facebook page, and ask people, what spiritual questions do you have? And like, people like um, asking a lot of questions, and then once in a while I get somebody say comes on and they'll say, "What is this shit? How can you? Why are you asking him?" I'm like, "Hey," and then other people try to step up and answer it, and then they're answering it wrong, and then I feel like a jerk because I have to come in and say, "Hey, you're actually wrong," or "You read that." So, and if I, and you do that enough, and you're saying the right thing, especially when you're coming from, like I said, source, then you have the right information, and then they're all coming from themselves, and then you're like, no, I got my higher power I'm connected with, just give me the information so I know it's a straight scoop. Anyway, anybody want to talk about anything else before I'm going to go? It's getting actually chilly out here, and I got to go do a couple things. So I'm going to sign off soon. It's been an hour and 7 minutes. The problem with these live chats, I'm doing them on this old laptop, is I try to save it, and it doesn't let me save. So you guys might be the only ones that see it. Oh, I don't know if you think it's worth me saving to my channel or deleting it, but hopefully you enjoyed it. Anybody want to say anything before I sign off? Stay positive, stay positive, and don't worry. Like I said, and the way it goes is the way it goes. Anyway, I'm gonna take off. It's been, I think, this one of my longest ones. I always try to keep them 20 minutes because most people have no um, attention span. 8 minutes is the average. Anyway, thanks so much for tuning in. I'm going to do a meditation for people later on my Facebook page if you want to check that out. If you go on Victor Hamsa, you could check out, this is cool. Hey, your depression disappeared? Oh, wait. I was actually a victim of thoughts. I used to think I'm depressed, but now I'm aware that I'm a separate entity from thoughts. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. So, thoughts are just thoughts. So, that's the cool part when you see that your thoughts are separate, and then like, where are those thoughts coming from? And then you separate it. That's a big step. If you get to the point where you could go for long periods of time without having a thought, that's a whole nother, you know, the enchilada. That's a whole other thing. When you go without having a thought, and then you control it completely. That's where we get towards enlightenment, right? So that's what I can do. I can control thought, so I can stop and just no thought. Like there. Did you see it? Correct myself up. But no, really. So, I could go without having a thought, which a lot of people, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know me being there or wherever I am. You wouldn't know I could have no thought. A lot of people always have a commentary running. To get to the point where you have no thought, it's pretty cool then. Because if you do get a thought, then I'm like, where's that coming from? Because it's not mine. See, then you're in control. Anyway, have a good day. Yes, you too. Everybody, have a good day. Like, subscribe, share. Thank you so much for tuning in. I love each and every one of you. I really do. I appreciate it. And let's all get together. I was just like, what I want to do this year, if I can, is do a retreat, get everybody together. And I was trying to team up. I won't say with who to put any pressure on this individual, but maybe get a couple other people, maybe from somebody with a well-known channel that you might know who that is, and do a retreat together. So I said that I'll do the meditation. I said I'll do the meditation, the spiritual stuff, and they could do the like other aspect of it, and then together it would be like doubly awesome. I thought because they could, it would be more of a straight man, but everybody else. I should do this every Thursday, or someone said every Thursday with Bill. That's your name. I'm like, oh, I should do this every Thursday. Here it is, Thursday, and you're saying every Thursday. Much, much love to everybody. I love the love. See, well, everybody's loving. So I'm gonna rub my hands together. It's getting cold out, and blow out some chi for you. Well, that was cool when I did that. The screen. Maybe it's just the camera. No, I don't know. That's weird. Maybe not. Anyway, hope you got that healing energy from me right there. Love you guys too. Thanks so much. I'm going to go do what I got to do. Probably just the dishes. Anyway, we had fun, right? All right, I'll talk to you later. Comment. Bye.